recording because people tell me that they like to listen to this recording. All right, let's do our check-in. What module are we on?
6.
6.
And what are we
Page
talking about?
106.
Oh, thank you. What page is it? Thank you. It's
106.
106.
Yep.
106. And what is our topic for today?
Formal power influence and cultural shaping.
All right, let us dive in and I will start. So how culture is formed in the spaces no accountability chart can see. So the accountability chart is what we built with EOS. And a certain stage of leadership development, most managers encounter a quiet realization that is both unsettling and clarifying. Most of what shapes culture does not flow through formal authority. This can be the source of a lot of frustration to managers who think that the organizational chart should be structuring things. Nope, it actually flows through what people pay attention to, who they copy, what gets laughed off, what gets fixed quietly, what never quite gets named. Long before policies take effect or strategies land, culture is already being taught moment by moment through informal signals. Len, this is the conversation we had today. This module exists to help managers recognize that reality without moralizing it or trying to control it. Informal power is not a problem to eliminate. It is a force to understand, engage, and align. So what do we say? Power is always in the room, right?
Yep.
There's formal power and then there's informal power. So recognizing both. So what informal power actually is? Informal power is not granted by title, role, or position. It emerges whenever people consistently orient themselves around somebody else's behavior, opinions, or emotional presence. So I was once told, if you want to know who your real leaders are, look for the one that says in the shop, meet me out in the parking lot at 5 o'clock. I've got a great idea I want to share with you. And everybody is out in the parking lot. So this is somebody not with a formal position, but with an informal ability to influence. In dealership environments, informal power often settles in very ordinary places. It may live with a long-tenured employee who knows how things really work, a top performer whose habits others quietly adopt, a person whose mood sets the emotional weather of a shift, or someone who always steps in when things begin to strain. As I went through that list, are you mentally naming people that fit those positions? I would hope so. None of these forms of influence are inherently negative. In fact, they often arise because the person is competent, reliable, or respected. The issue is not that informal power exists. The issue that it often operates without being acknowledged, which allows it to shape culture in unintended ways. So it may be a force that is working in a different direction than the formal force is working. One of the core principles of the psychoethical workplace states that power is always in the room. This principle applies whether power is formally recognized or not. Informal power is simply power that has not yet been named. Why informal power shapes culture more than policy? Policies, procedures, and value statements describe what an organization intends to be. Informal power reveals what actually happens. People learn culture less by what leaders say and more by what they watch other people do, especially those who seem protected, admired, or indispensable. When a respected veteran cuts corners and nothing happens, the system learns something. When a high performer behaves in ways that quietly contradict the stated values but continues to be rewarded, the system learns something else. And I want to mention that some of this has been cleaned up. It used to be much more the culture. This is why the core principle of culture is what we permit, protect, and practice is so central here. Informal power amplifies whatever is being permitted, whether leaders mean to permit it or not. If cynicism goes unaddressed, it spreads. If repair is modeled, trust deepens. If rescue becomes normal, accountability weakens. Culture is always being taught, often by people who do not realize they are teaching. The relationship between informal power and rescue. Earlier modules named rescue as a system response to a strain. Module 6 shows where the rescue often becomes entrenched. Informal leaders are frequently the ones who step in when systems falter. They fix problems after hours, smooth over mistakes, protect others for consequences, or quietly make it work when processes break down. Their actions are usually motivated by care, pride, or desire to protect the team. Over time, however, this creates a shadow structure. The formal system says one thing, the informal system does another. Integrity begins to split, not because anyone is acting in bad faith, but because the system has not yet learned how to carry strain openly. When informal rescue becomes the norm, accountability quietly migrates from roles and into people. The organization becomes dependent on individual conscience rather than shared structure. And this is not sustainable. It is not fair to the informal leaders or the system as a whole. And what happens when we lose our informal leaders? These system gaps become apparent. Why managers often miss informal power. Managers are trained to pay attention to what they're formally responsible for: performance metrics, schedules, compliance, and outcomes. Informal power operates at a different level through tone, credibility, imitation, and permission. Because it is relational rather than procedural, it often remains invisible until it undermines something important. A manager may feel confused about resistance to a new initiative or frustrated by recurring issues that should be resolved by now, without realizing that informal signals are quietly teaching a different lesson, a lesson that's working against what the formal one is. When informal power is ignored, leaders often misdiagnose the problem as attitude, motivation, or communication. In reality, the system is being shaped elsewhere. This is why engaging informal power is not about control or politics, it's about restoring coherence. Informal power as an amplifier, not a source. Informal power does not create values on its own. It amplifies whatever values are already being enacted under pressure. If informal leaders consistently speak directly, the culture becomes more honest. If they repair openly, trust grows. If they avoid conflict or express cynicism, disengagement spreads, even if formal messaging says otherwise. The amplification effect explains why the culture can feel stable on the surface while eroding underneath. You guys remember how I've been pushing against sarcasm? Because sarcasm is one of those eroding systems. It erodes in a covert way. The signals that matter the most are often the quiet ones. The psychoethical system does not try to suppress this amplification. It works to align it. The ethical risk of leaving informal power unengaged. When informal power goes unrecognized, several things begin to happen at once. Leaders feel increasingly responsible for outcomes they cannot fully influence. Accountability feels inconsistent. High integrity people become tired. Informal leaders feel overburdened or resentful without quite knowing why. This creates a particular corrosive form of ethical strain. Leaders are held accountable for culture while culture is being shaped beyond their awareness by other informal leaders, I'd add to that. Module 6 exists to surface that strain and redirect it, not by cracking down, but bringing influence into a shared psychoethical field. So I want you to think of the shop floor and the sales floor and where that might be happening. Who might be some of those covert voices? So 5 workplace vows, guys, for engaging informal power. So they're essential here because informal power cannot be managed by rules alone. It must be engaged relationally and ethically. Staying curious helps managers notice influence patterns without defensiveness or blame. Speaking directly prevents informal power from operating through gossip or side channels. Many of you I've had that conversation with about the gossip and side channels. Telling the truth with care allows misalignment to be named without humiliation. Separating behavior from worth, Joe, we were just talking about this, prevents the shame-based clampdowns that drive influence further underground. Choosing repair over righteousness keeps the system intact when informal influence causes harm. These vows do not weaken leadership authority. They strengthen it by aligning influence with integrity rather than forcing compliance. What ethical engagement with informal power looks like. Ethical engaging ethically engaging in formal power does not mean neutralizing strong personalities or diminishing respected contributors. So as you think of these people who are your informal leaders, keep that in mind. It means recognizing influence where it exists and inviting it into shared responsibility. I'm thinking of some of the ways that, Joe, you've tried to do that with a team, some of which have been more successful than others. In mature systems, informal leaders are not sidelined or idealized, they are engaged. Their impact is named, they have a voice, and we might as well address it. Their influence is aligned with the same psychoethical commitments expected of formal leaders. So that's what we mean about alignment, is getting our informal leaders aligned with what we're trying to do formally. This integration reduces shadow dynamics and restores coherence between what the organization says it values and what people actually experience. Why this is a developmental task, not a political one. Most managers hesitate to engage informal power because it feels political or risky. In psychoethical terms, it's not a political issue, it's a developmental one. As systems mature, power becomes more visible and influence becomes discussable. We are able to discuss many things now that we were not able to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And culture becomes intentional rather than accidental. Avoiding informal power does not keep the system neutral. It leaves culture in the hands of whoever acts the longest, loudest, or most quietly indispensable. Engaging informal power is how leadership protects the system from drift. So what this module is asking for managers, this module does not ask managers to monitor personalities or police behavior. It asks something more subtle and more demanding, to pay attention to who shapes behavior when no one is directing it, and to take responsibility for aligning that influence with integrity. So I'd like you right now to just write down on whatever page you're on, some of the people that you, as this dialogue is going on, as I'm framing this conversation, you know are informal leaders in the organization. People who have influence over it can be through their humor, it can be through creating AI videos, it can be through inside information, it can be from expertise, it can be from helpfulness, it can be a lot of ways. Just think of who the informal leaders are, who the go-to people are, who the ones that you find that other people are following even when you want them to be going in a different direction. So this is not about asserting control, it's about protecting coherence, so that the organization does not ask individuals to carry what the system should hold. So what success looks like. When informal power is engaged psychoethically, the organization begins to feel different. Resistance decreases because it's addressed rather than worked around. Rescue decreases because strain is named rather than absorbed. Alignment increases because influence is shared rather than hidden. Culture becomes more predictable, not because people are constrained, but because influence is aligned with stated commitments. Once a system can hold ethical tension, relational tension, and informal power without fragmenting, gets ready to face a deeper challenge. Stay tuned for next week. Moral fatigue, cynicism, and the cost of carrying integrity alone.
Oof.
Who said that? Brian.
No, it was MJ, but she said what
It was me. Oof.
You did the hand gesture, Brian, so I didn't see the lips move. I just saw the hand gesture.
I mean, we
Okay.
do have one-on-ones, Pamela. We don't have to call me out in public on every chapter.
Sarcasm wounds and confuses. So culture is not created by statements or strategies, created by what people watch, imitate, tolerate, and repair. Informal power is not a threat to leadership. It's one of the most important places leadership actually lives. It is the informal leadership that you want to get aligned with your formal leadership, because otherwise the organization's being pulled in different directions. Learning to see and engage it is how integrity becomes cultural rather than inspirational. So give me a thumbs up if you have a general idea of what we're talking about here. Is it making sense?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, now let's go to our scenarios, which will help bring it to life. Who wants to take the first one?
I'll go. Everyone waits to see what he says. In a department meeting, a new process is introduced. No one objects outright. A few people nod, the room is quiet. Then one long tenured employee leans back and says, half jokingly, "Yeah, we've tried versions of this before." No argument follows, no debate, but the energy in the room shifts. After the meeting, people move forward cautiously. The process is followed in form, but not in spirit. Exceptions multiply. Eventually, the initiative stalls. What's actually happening? This informal authority operating through credibility and memory. The employee didn't overrule anyone. They didn't refuse. They simply signaled skepticism, and the system adjusted.
You can do the second part too,
Uh,
Brian.
yeah, so I'm reading off here.
Yeah.
How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that history outweighs experimentation, skepticism is safer than engagement, and real decisions happen after meetings, not in them. What ethical engagement would require, not silencing the person, but engaging their influence directly, naming their impact, inviting their perspective into shared responsibility, and clarifying what authority actually governs this decision.
Okay, we're going to do the fingers on the 1 to 5. On a 1 to 5 scale, how often have you seen this operating at either Scranton or Stroudsburg? Over an extended period of time. Tom's doing a 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5.
I've
What
been
does the
guilty of it
numbers,
myself.
what does a 1 versus a 5 represent? Because I think last time I got off on that.
Okay, 1 means rarely. Rarely have I seen it happen. 5 means I've
Okay.
seen it happen a lot.
Okay.
All right, 5, Len.
Yeah, 5, 2 years ago.
Yeah, you had a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So everybody got a sense of it and a sense of it being real. All right, scenario number 2. Who would like to take that one?
She,
I'll do it.
she always fixes it after hours.
I won't do it.
Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, you could do it. I'll take a different one. If
I'm
if the
still-
silence gets too long, I'll jump in.
That's
I'm
exactly
happy
what I
for
was
someone else to
doing.
do it.
All right, a capable team member regularly stays late to fix problems that show up at the end of the day. Missed paperwork, unresolved customer issues, incomplete handoffs. No one asked her to, no one told her to stop. Everyone is grateful. Over time, others come to rely on this pattern. The system begins to assume that problems will be caught and correctly corrected quietly. What's actually happening? This is informal power through rescue and reliability. The system is being stabilized by one person's conscious rather than by structure.
One person's conscience rather than structure. Yep.
How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that strain will be absorbed, accountability can be softened, and clarity is optional because someone will make it work. What ethical engagement would require, making this influence visible, appreciating the care without letting it replace system responsibility, asking what the system is failing to hold, and redesigning it so integrity does not depend on sacrifice.
All right, on a 1 to 5 scale, over a period of time, how often is this happening? We got some 5s, we got some 4s. Al never sees it happening.
I don't. So
Okay, well, we're doing a good job of keeping it from you, Al, because
Very
everybody
good.
else is seeing it
very,
happen.
very good.
I would
All
I would
right.
ask it differently. I would say, Alan, do you have a go-to after hours if you need something to be done?
A go-to
Absolutely.
person. Okay, and who
Absolutely.
who are those go-to people?
The one that just spoke up is one of them.
Right. So I would say that is an indicator that it does happen. If you have go-to people to turn to in those situations,
Thank you,
that's an
Tom.
indication that it's happening.
Thank you, Tom, for the clarification.
But
All right.
but here's how
But what?
you got to unpack it. So, but that's the way it's supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to go to
No,
chain
it's
of
not supposed
command.
to happen.
No?
Well, we're not talking about chain of command. We're talking about the people who informally fix things and step in. I'm going to say Christine Sheen is one. I'm going to say that Katrina is one in Stroudsburg. I'm going to say that
Brianne.
Brianne, you've got other ones that you can name. Joe, you probably can think of a couple that you can name. All right. So that's what we're talking about. So the whole thing is that there's a gap in the system that's not covering it. Somebody keeps stepping in, so we're unaware of the gap in the system. Let's keep going. Scenario 3.
I'll take this one.
Okay, thank you.
Scenario 3, no one wants to be the one to push back. Doug and Ahmad consistently bend small rules, nothing egregious, just enough to move faster. Results are strong, customers are happy. Others notice, some feel uncomfortable, no one says anything. When John follows the same shortcuts, he is corrected sharply. What's actually happening? This is informal power through protected performance. Influence flows from results, not role. How culture is being shaped? The culture learns that standards are flexible for some people, results outweigh consistency, and fairness is situational. What ethical engagement would require: separating behavior from worth, addressing the pattern without attacking the person, clarifying which behaviors are non-negotiable regardless of performance, and modeling that clarity consistently.
Okay, on a 1 to 5, how often have you had to have that conversation, or you now realize you need to have that conversation around ethical engagement? It's a little bit different now that I'm naming it, right? That's a conversation that needs to be had. And Al is still on 1. Joe, I know you've had these conversations.
Yeah, but a while ago.
Well, it can be a while ago because you've
Oh,
been working on this longer. You've been working on this longer than some other departments.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it used to be very consistent.
Okay, everybody
I mean,
following
is
what we're
this a
doing here?
is this a recent score or did it ever happen score?
Well, it's a
Because if it's
different.
ever happened, here you go. I mean, but from my point of view now, I would say 1. Just
Still
so.
Okay.
happens in sales often.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's still happening in sales. Joe's been working on cleaning it up. Was it happening in parts at Scranton?
Till today, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that came to my mind. You know, was it happening in F&I? Was it
Yep.
happening in Scranton F&I? Okay, so yes, and will it happen again in the future? Perhaps.
Sure.
Is it something that we need to be aware of that, slips through, and then we have to once again recognize that that's happening? Yes. Scenario number 4, and thank you for personalizing it. If somebody wants to do this one,
I got it.
okay.
Tara, I'm going to take this one because I'm going to personalize it. The mood sets the shift. Dale's mood has an outsized effect on the team. When they're upbeat, the shift feels lighter. When they're frustrated, tension spreads quickly. No one calls it out. People just adjust around it.
For
What's
years.
Yes. What's actually happening? This is an informal power through emotional dominance. Influence is being exerted through affect, not words. How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that emotional regulation is unevenly distributed. Some people's feelings can carry more weight, and adaptation is safer than naming impact. What ethical engagement would require? Acknowledging emotional influence as real power, naming impact without shaming, setting boundaries around how emotional expression affects the collective field.
Tara, are you in the room with Mary Jo?
How are you?
I can't see on the camera. Okay, so would you say that this was very much what you've been recently addressing?
That's okay.
Yes? I can't see you and I can't hear you.
There, she can read it, and she's asking, and Pamela's asking you a question.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm saying this sounds like something that you've recently had to address with your team. Am I getting that right? I think that's what Tom was just saying. I'm going to do this one for you, Tara. Was that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. And was it challenging for you to do this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. But,
Yeah.
and Joe, you've had someone you've had to do this with, a consistent high performer that you've had to over and over again. Course correct. Yep.
Yep.
So we use Dale as an example, but we have other examples. All right, scenario 5.
The quiet eye roll. During meetings, the respected employee rarely speaks, but when certain topics arise, they exchange looks with others, sigh quietly, or roll their eyes. Nothing explicit is said. Everyone notices what's actually happening. This is informal power through nonverbal signaling. Disapproval is communicated without accountability. How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that disengagement is safer than disagreement. Resistance doesn't need words, and influence can operate without responsibility. What ethical engagement would require? Bringing nonverbal influence into the open, inviting direct speech, making indirect signaling less powerful than honest engagement.
Okay, how many eyeball rollers do we have in the room? We're proud to admit it. I'm an eyeball roller.
Me too.
Some of you know the story. I got thrown out of 9th grade Spanish class for rolling my eyes. And the teacher was absolutely right to throw me out because she said she told us to study for a quiz. I knew she hadn't. She got it wrong. I debated with it. I argued with her in front of the class. And then she pulled a power move and just said, close your books, we're having the test. And I did what adolescent girls do. I gave a big sigh and rolled my eyeballs. And she threw me out of the class. Was she right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because what was I signaling? What was I signaling?
Power in the room.
Informal
I was signaling disrespect.
Yes.
I was signaling openly disrespect. I was countering her power, Al. That's right. I was being a stronger power and I was signaling disrespect.
You were looking for friends to come across the line to support with you.
No, I wasn't. I didn't care.
No?
No, not me.
But you wouldn't have like been mad at them if they'd come over and supported you.
I never even thought about it, Al. It doesn't matter for me. I got thrown out and then I went out in the hall and I started wandering around because I was the head of safety patrol and I had a free pass and she came out and she couldn't find me and she got really mad. So, but it's just, she was right to call out the signal of disrespect. So if people are doing nonverbals, we often operate with the idea that I don't have the right to call it out because they didn't actually say anything. So I also did not get my undergraduate degree for 2 years after I finished because I did something that was very similar. So you think I would have learned. But some of us are slower than others. So it is an indirect message that power is always in the room. You're right, Al. It was a covert use of power. Do you have team members that do that? Is it part of what's going on in the culture? Does it need to be called out? Yes, it does. All right, without shaming, but just giving it voice. So it looks like Pamela has something to say. I didn't say anything.
Brian
All
catches
right.
me on the one-on-ones with that. I don't roll my eyes as much as widen them.
Yeah, you give one of those. I've seen that look. I've seen that look on your face.
I disagree with what somebody says, and I go.
Yeah, you're like a cartoon character with that. Yep.
I make big noises to draw the attention back.
Yeah. You can say we got to come up with a name for it. Hey, big eyes. All right, who wants to do number 6?
I will.
No, thank you, Mary Jo.
You're welcome. People go to him before they go to the manager. When something goes wrong, team members consult a peer first, not the manager. He's seen as practical, fair, and easier to talk to. The manager isn't excluded intentionally. It just feels simpler this way. What's actually happening? This is informal authority through access and trust. Influence is flowing around formal leadership. How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that authority lives where safety is felt. Formal roles are optional under pressure, and decisions can drift from accountability. What ethical engagement would require? Recognizing the trust this person holds, engaging them as a cultural ally rather than a rival, strengthening formal leadership's relational capacity so authority and trust align.
Can you name who this might be in your department?
I
I'm
see
actually-
Go ahead.
I see technicians come to sometimes myself, but more often Joe, as opposed to Chuck.
Okay, so that's something you're working on, right?
Yeah, Joe is.
I've actually had this conversation with Anthony. Well, a few of the salespeople like to go to Anthony for advice just because they see him as like a good salesperson who does a solid job. And I've just counseled them on like, it's great that they come to you for that, and you are somebody we would like them to look to. And a great response is like, I don't know, let's see what Frank or Nick or Bishal think about that together, rather than possibly steer them in a direction we don't need for them, because everybody's individual and we may have one-on-ones and stuff that are directing them in a different line.
Nice way to do it, Frank. Nice framing.
I'm actually hoping to find someone like this on the floor
Yeah.
for the
I was for a long time
expense
too.
portion. Because I'm like,
It's
I'm like,
great when you can
okay,
work with them. Yeah.
yeah, I'll see one person for a week and then it'll be another person for another week. And I was like, please, someone just take the influence.
Okay, all right. Thank you. But you understand this on a 1 to 5. How familiar are you with this? How much sense does it make to you? Yeah. Okay. So it is a moment to say, as Frank was modeling, what are we not doing as leaders that is allowing this to be easier for people? Do they see us as unapproachable, or does it seem to be lower risk to go to someone? And how do we reduce the risk? Scenario 7. Who would like to take that?
I could read it.
Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome. The informal rules of everyone knows. There are unwritten rules about what really matters, what can be ignored, and what will never be enforced. New hires learn these rules quickly, not through orientation, but through observation. What's actually happening? This is informal power at the systemic level. Culture is being transmitted through behavior, not language. How culture is being shaped. The culture learns that stated values are negotiable, real expectations are hidden, and integrity is contextual. What ethical engagement would require? Surfacing the informal rules, comparing them to stated commitments, deciding consciously what the system is willing to stand behind.
So Scranton has had a lot of change. And this represents some of the stages you've gone through, right? I'm thinking particularly of service. And Stroudsburg is closer to that as a work in progress. So how do we start naming what have been the informal rules, particularly when they counter the formal rules or the best practices we're trying to put in place? 1 to 5, how familiar are you with this? How recognizable is it for you? Tom, that's a thumb?
Yeah. I'm thinking, and yeah, I don't think I'm keeping up.
Okay, all right, you're still processing.
Yeah.
All right, so what are these scenarios pointing to? Across all these situations, one truth is consistent. Informal power is never neutral. It either stabilizes the system when aligned with integrity or erodes it quietly when left unexamined. And that's why I like the part situation you did, Tom. Ignoring informal power does not make it go away. It makes it harder to engage ethically. The longer we let it go on, the longer we give permission to it by not calling it out and asking for it to be changed, the deeper it becomes entrenched. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, culture is not shaped by what leaders intend, it's by what people see work. Informal power shows you exactly where that learning is happening. Seeing it clearly is not a threat to leadership. It's one of the most important forms of leadership. It is, but it is the informal leadership, not the formal. Okay, so now get your pens and papers ready to do your work. So this is the worksheet. Informal power and cultural influence self-reflection. So this tool is not about identifying problem people. It's about noticing where influence already exists and how it's shaping behavior, expectations, and trust, often without anyone intending it. Use this quietly on your own. You can use it after a meeting that didn't quite land, or when an initiative stalls without clear resistance, or when you feel responsible for outcomes you don't fully control. We're going to go through it now to see what it surfaces in your thinking. All right. And all I'm going to ask you to share on the other side is one honest observation, as it said. So what kind of influence is operating here? Before asking what to do, notice what is already happening. So Joe, you were talking about some things you're going to do in the shop right now about comebacks and all of that. So this is part of the first step. You know, ask yourself, who do people watch when something new is introduced? Whose reaction seems to matter most, even when nothing is said? Put names next to it if you've got names that are popping up while you're here. Who do people go to when things break down? Who absorbs strain without being asked? These questions are not about blame, they're about attention. Informal power lives where attention gathers. Step one, notice where the informal power sits. Reflect on the following without naming individuals out loud, but do write them down for your own process. Where does credibility live outside formal roles? Who shapes the tone of meetings without speaking much? Who sets the what's realistic through comments, jokes, or silence? Or sarcasm? Who is protected by results, tenure, or indispensability? Informal power often sits with competence, history, or emotional presence, not authority. What's the core principle?
Power is always in the room.
Whether it is named or not. Step two. Notice how that influence is teaching the system. Informal power is constantly teaching, especially under pressure. Ask yourself, what behaviors are being copied? What behaviors are quietly avoided? So I want you to think on the sales floor, the shop floor, because these are gatherings of people where a lot of this is going on. What gets fixed informally rather than addressed structurally? What reactions signal approval or disapproval without words? Head nodding, eyeball rolling, sighing, and other sounds. This is how culture is actually learned. Just imagine you have a new hire on the floor and you're doing a meeting. It's a stand-up meeting, sales shop, and they hear the senior people and they watch the senior people, and what do they start learning? No matter what you covered in the training, this is what is real. So what is the core principle and view for this?
Culture is what we permit, protect, and practice.
Yep. Informal power amplifies whatever the system repeatedly permits. Step three, notice your own relationship to informal power. This is often the most important and most uncomfortable step. Ask yourself honesty. Where do I rely on informal leaders to stabilize things? As we've been talking about this, trying to move people out of overfunctioning, this is beginning to surface a lot. Some of the people who are overfunctioners are beginning to recognize when they're overfunctioning and when they're being asked to overfunction, and have conversations about it. Where do I avoid engaging somebody's influence because it feels risky? Once again, put names if this brings it to mind. Where do I benefit from rescue or quiet fixing? Somebody else doing rescue or quiet fixing. Where does it serve me? Where might my silence be granting permission? I didn't speak up. I didn't think I should say anything. I didn't want to call it out. This is not about weakness. It's about how leadership adapts under strain. Okay, step number 4. Notice where integrity is carried by people instead of structure. Informal power becomes problematic when it replaces system capacity. Where does integrity depend on someone's conscience? Where does the way we really do things differ from the stated agreements? Where does accountability soften because of who is involved? I want you to underline that one because that's the one I hear about. Where does accountability soften because of who is involved? Where does repair happen privately, if at all? These are signals that the system has not yet learned how to hold strain openly. And the core principles are?
Integrity is the bridge between inner work and outer behavior. Accountability is love in action.
Thank you. When accountability migrates to individual, love becomes exhaustion. Step 5, use 5 workplace vows as ethical orientation. You're not meant to apply your vows to other people. They are for your own orientation as a leader. Choose the one that feels relevant right now. Vow 1, I stay curious when I want to defend. Where do I feel defensive about someone's influence? What story am I telling myself about their intent? Curiosity opens space where control would close it. Now, I know this because sometimes you're telling me the story about their intent. Vow 2, I speak directly, not in triangles. Where is influence being managed sideways instead of directly? What conversation am I avoiding because it feels politically sensitive? Directness restores integrity to power. Vow 3, I tell the truth with care. What truth about influence feels risky to name? How might silence increase its impact? Truth spoken with care prevents shadow dynamic. 4, I separate behavior from worth. Am I hesitating because I don't want to shame or alienate someone? I wouldn't be surprised if that was real for some of you. Can influence be addressed without diminishing dignity? This vow prevents ethical engagement from turning into attack. And vow 5, I choose repair over righteousness. Has informal influence already caused strain or harm? What repair would restore coherence even if nothing wrong was done? Repair is how systems stay whole. So these are conversations that I would encourage you to keep having with each other because it's going to take a while to really unpack this. These are new concepts, new things to think about. Name what the system is being asked to learn. Instead of asking, how do I manage this person? Ask, what is this pattern teaching us about structure? What does it reveal about clarity, containment, or trust? Where does the system need to grow so this influence is integrated rather than hidden? You all work so closely to the day-to-day transactions that you may not see this because you actually have to zoom out to see this. It's something I hear when you and I are talking or when I read your reports. It's what I hear because I have a 30,000-foot view. And because I'm not in the day-to-day, I can see across the weeks and months the patterns that are going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, it is difficult when you're in the day-to-day. That's what we talk about, working in the business versus on the business. You know, stepping back and saying, you know, what might be going on here? And then after action reflection, when you engage informal power, either well or poorly, return briefly and say, did influence become more visible or more hidden? Did the system feel steadier or more fragile? And what did people learn from how this was handled? This is how experience becomes leadership capacity. So informal power is not leadership failure. It's evidence that people are adapting to real conditions. A psychoethical workplace does not suppress informal influence. It actually recognizes it as a real and vital force. It learns how to recognize it, engage it, and align it with integrity. So those are your informal leaders. You just want to get them aligned with the formal leadership. This tool exists so culture does not drift by default, but develops by design. All right. So that was a lot, right?
Yeah.
It was, you know, a lot to think about, a lot that's new. But what we're really saying is there is an informal power system operating simultaneously to the formal power system. And in my experience, if you're not aware of it, it will affect how well your formal power system works, because it can be undoing your formal power system as fast as you are doing it. When Scranton was really toxic, that was what was going on. You guys have made tremendous strides. Stroudsburg has had to just uncover it and discover it, and bit by bit, it's being addressed. But there had been a well-established informal power structure in place, because the formal power structure was either absent or ineffective. So as managing Stroudsburg meant you had to discover what all those were. And some of the players are not there anymore. All right, so now what's a takeaway? What are you getting from this? What, in your own language, maybe? What thought has it?
I can go.
Okay, Sam.
My takeaway is the importance of having the right people in the room when you're making big decisions. And, my new perspective of that is it's not just people on the accountability chart. There's the right people in the room could be, who are going to be, if you're putting in a new process, who are going to be your, like process champions that are going to be the people you can rely on to be good examples and demonstrate how that's going to work for the rest of the team. I was thinking of someone like Mark Thomas, who sees all our new hires in their first weeks, and he typically becomes a point of reference for them, despite him not necessarily being
yeah, great
a
example.
manager in the sense of the word, where he has accountability for, he does have accountability for employees, but not in the sense that we think of as a manager relationship. So if we were going to do something for new hires, I would think that he's an important person to have in the room, despite
in the
maybe not
conversation.
being part of that conversation based on the accountability chart.
Thank you. Good points. Thank you, Sam. Who wants to go next?
Go ahead.
I was going to let Len go, but I'll go. So Joe and I were having a conversation around this today. So Orion is coming back out next week. And we're talking about getting a little bit of perspective from them as folks who don't work in the business the same way we
Every day.
do.
Yep.
Around the informal rules that everyone knows. And so we have a desired walk around process and experience we'd like to provide in the lane for both customers that have an appointment and customers that don't. And the culture has been shaped in a bit of a different way than I think Joe would like to see and I would like to see. And so we need some help in identifying that. And I think some contribution is the, exceptions we've allowed because folks have their own way of making connections with people. However, what may work for one may not work for another. And so a newer advisor like Matt Edwards may not have the benefit of fully understanding the importance and getting to see it in the way we all saw it when we launched with Orion. And so, I'm just thinking about how all of our advisors are leaders, quiet leaders, many of them. And they're displaying what we allow versus, which is a bit of a variance, not a wide variance, but a small variance from what the desired activity is. So sorry, I don't know if that, Joe, does that
Go on.
makes okay. Well, I'm hoping I'm not stepping on Joe's toes either.
No. As a matter of fact, I had wrote something down that was relevant, but you didn't steal my thunder. I have
Okay.
But yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Len's up next, and then we can come back.
All right. So 2 years ago, I could have identified 4 or 5 people on the floor that had this informal power. Those people aren't here anymore, and I don't really see it as any 1 or 2 or 3 people continuously holding it. I'm wondering if it's more like a manager's informal power when the spotlight's not on us, and we're not saying, okay, this is the way that we're doing things, and then handling it a different way when the lights are off, and it's like it's just us being put in the moment. Is that like an informal power, the way that we actually work through the what we're supposed to be doing
It's
when no
another
one
way to
else is
think
doing
about it,
it?
Len. Yeah, I wonder what that really does to people's heads who are watching.
Or based, or it be one manager reacting in a different manner than the other managers react. And that person holding the influence, being the person that you can go to and they say, yeah, it's okay, we got it, no problem. Don't worry about that.
Now I follow you. Okay, so there's like the agreed upon, this is how we're going to do it from a management standpoint. And then
Yes,
there's a person who acts as a release valve.
correct.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll take over. So along the lines of what Tom was saying, it was either last week or the week before, I happened to notice that we were letting walk-ins sit in the lane for way too long. So I brought it up in an advisor morning meeting looking for some feedback and some help around how we can address it or fix it. And I got crickets, so I plugged it into ChatGPT, asked it to break out 3 different processes for me to address it. The last one it broke out is what we're currently doing, and there was a comment underneath that said would require a strong culture. And I was like, oof, like,
Wow.
well, that's interesting because it's not working.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's
kind of
great,
like,
Joe.
yeah, so like kind of what Tom was hitting at there. And long story short, I had it create a process for me, implemented it, but you mentioned it. I might be too attached. Like I might be too into it to really see what's going on, whether it's like an informal leader thing going on out there where certain people are ignoring these walk-ins and it leaves other people stuck to deal with them. Clearly we have an issue. So need to take a deeper dive. And again, me and Tom were talking about that today, where, it definitely speaks to something. We just have
Mhm.
to break it apart to really find out what's going on. So just kind of interesting timing that we're talking about this now. And the one example that was brought up about a capable team member staying late, that's exactly where my head went with this walk-in
Mhm.
process. So there's some relevancy there.
Thank you. Great. More will
Keep
be
this
revealed.
I will keep this as short-winded as I can. For those of you who are at all struggling with this, I can give you a great example. I am hyper aware of this because I am many times been this person, but I'll give an army story about this. So when I was deploying to Afghanistan, I was the guy that was just an E4 that a lot of people followed. If I was going to the gym, my eating regimens, a lot of different stuff. And leadership loved it. Like people would fall in line behind me and they didn't have to do as much or waste as much energy. And then we kind of got lit up one night because we weren't showing up to places where we were supposed to on time and we were getting ready to go to theater. The very next morning, we got on a bus and we went to a training site and we got off the bus and it was the wrong training site. We had to file out of the bleachers, get back on the bus. We went to another training site and it was the wrong training site again. The third time we got off the bus and there was nobody there, I yelled out in front of the entire platoon, and this is the only time I really got in trouble in the Army. Let's get it together, leadership, because that's what they had told us the night before. And that's the difference between when informal power is really helping you, when somebody's doing the right thing and everybody's following, it's great. You don't say anything, you're like, awesome. But the minute it becomes toxic, as in my case, it was very toxic
Yep.
when they were
Your
struggling.
frustration came out.
If that's the first time you notice it, you're done. If you allow it to happen without engaging or talking about it, then it can turn toxic very, very quick because when that person gets toxic, everybody's going to follow that as well.
Love it. Frank, that's a great story. Everybody get what Frank was saying? I certainly did. Yeah. Yeah, but it's an out of the workplace, but it's a very clear example of it. And I love the way you summarized it. Yeah, it's great, and leadership loves it when the informal leadership is going in the direction they want them to do.
Mhm.
But if you do not have a good relationship between informal and formal, when it goes toxic, can take the whole
Really
platoon
toxic.
with it. Yep, got it. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I will go.
Thank you. Whether you'd like it or not, right?
Yeah, you know. I was thinking about the benefit of being an informal leader is a lack of responsibility, and with that comes a lack of integrity around a lot of stuff. And I was also thinking about, right, I similar to Frank, but like, there was a everything that I like when I was in hockey, I was a captain. When I was in, band, I was a captain. And then when I was a 18-year-old line cook, I was the kitchen manager, way too young, right? And it was a lot of the stuff that the showing up early and leaving late and being a support to the people around me is what like got me promoted or nominated for those positions. But it wasn't always in line with, right? Like I remember someone put something on my menu that I was like, we're not fucking making this. And we didn't sell it. And but it was, and I was just thinking about the things that, a lot of this book section, book two has been a lot like a lot of the things that help us succeed, an overindulgence of those behaviors are the same things that will hold us back, right? And it keeps coming
Yep.
up.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I was thinking about.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Al, are you otherwise engaged or are you with us?
No, I've gotta spend some time unpacking this. It's
Yeah.
deep.
Mhm.
It's you know, it can be beneficial at times.
I
It can
find, let's get
be
some I statements in there.
I think it can be beneficial at times. Um,
What
I
can be? I
think
don't know what the what is in that statement.
well the people doing some of these things that don't have that aren't identified as the leader, the boss, or whatever, that are trying to help and support other people um, for whatever reasons. And there's a lot of reasons. There's there's good reasons in my mind. There's covert reasons. There's all kinds of different you know thought process behind why it happens. I think I think in from why I need to unpack it and think about it some more is because at my level, I don't see I don't see a lot or have the opportunity to witness a lot of what was talked about in the meeting. I see it, I see some bits and pieces of it come to surface in, weekly reports. I see some people channel it and communicate about it completely different. Um, I see it somewhat, from my perspective, from my own personal view, somewhat siloed in terms of not communicated at my level. Um, I don't know if that's good or bad at this point. I got to think about it some more. I don't know. I don't know if that's like, people are handling it in their.
Would it be okay if I offered a perception?
Yeah, please. No, absolutely. No, I'm just talking out loud, trying to work
Okay, thank
myself
you.
through it.
You are someone who has actually used informal power systems to get the results you want, circumventing formal systems. And that's part of what we've been building in our structure over the past couple of years. And that's because of just your whole modus operandi, the way you learn to work in the business. And the way you kind of work in general is being results driven and, make a way, find a way.
Yeah, right.
And that's great for a small startup, scrappy operation, but it doesn't scale well. That's kind of the lessons of power is it doesn't scale well. The bigger we get, the more it requires having formal power structures that are being utilized rather than informal power structures. But you've been kind of a get her done guy.
Always. Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
And so
Yeah.
and so you go
Yeah.
to the guy in the shop that can get it done. You
Right.
go to the person on the floor that can get it done, and that often does not include the formal power structure. And that's one of the reasons why we've been working on getting you into your visionary leadership role so that we can, do a better job of maintaining the formal systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it explains why I am clueless on some of the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
clueless.
because you're one of the
Yeah.
number one
I'm giving
offenders
a
now.
1, everybody's giving a 5, I'm giving a 5, they're giving a 1. I mean, it's like, I've got to think about this because is it because, I've been dismissed for the last 3 weeks with my back, or is it because I'm clueless that I'm just not getting the information? Or is it the way it's designed that it shouldn't and need to be communicated at those levels? So,
I think you have spent a lifetime working in informal power systems. And so, everything we've been trying to do for the last couple of years about building formal power systems through EOS and our L10s and our quarterly meetings and all of that, that's moving to formal structures. So we'll keep talking. We got a few more modules left. And yes, you did miss a couple of weeks of this.
We need some time on a one-on-one on this because I got some fight back on this whole thing.
Well, and you missed a couple of modules. So
yeah, no, I understand. I completely understand. I need some more time and practice and some explanation and some work on it. I absolutely,
this is a
I'm
shift.
guilty. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mary Jo and Tara, let's have a wrap up with you guys.
Okay.
Gals.
This is relational, informal power.
Mm-hmm. Yep. In your opinion, it is relational.
In my opinion, it's relational. Also,
that's how you're seeing it.
That is exactly how I see it. But I'm having.
And you are good.
I am good
working
with
through
relational.
Well, you are good, but you are also someone like Al who has learned to use informal systems.
Yeah, there you
go. Oh, wait, tell it to me again.
We're not that bad. We're just kind of bad, but we're not that bad.
You're the one who's seeing here and it is bad and good. It was not said. Bad and good.
Al, I hate it. That's why I know it's important.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sitting here. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Mary Jo is quite skillful at working the informal relational systems, which was a learned skill that sometimes does not include. Now, you've worked hard to work through the formal systems. Jo, I'm sure you can affirm that.
Oh, yeah.
That she has, like bringing things to your morning meeting and going to you directly rather than going directly to a service advisor, Len, to you instead of to a sales consultant. So, but your original impulse was to work relationally directly with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Jo, as someone married to a woman who's in the service industry for 23 years, and Brian,
Yes.
I'm sure will agree with this. I think it happens in that industry more than any other industry ever. You'll have like a meeting before the shift about what we're going to do this time, and then like 3 servers and a bartender walk out and go, "Yeah, we're not doing that. We're doing our own thing," because there's nobody to actually run the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank, for
That
building
was
that
good.
bridge. That was a
Thank
good
you.
bridge. Thank you, Frank. Tara, what are you taking away?
Okay.
Well, much like Al and MJ,
You need to process. Yep.
yeah, and like Brian said, it makes me uncomfortable, so I know it's important. I don't know if that's what he meant by that, but that's how I feel. There were a few things that stuck out for me though, just in the questionnaire. Specifically, what story am I telling myself about their intent? What conversations am I having because it feels politically sensitive? And then the other one, I separate my behavior from worth. Am I hesitating because I don't want to shame or alienate someone? There's so many other moving parts to all of
Yep.
this. I can't put it together right now. But
Great.
very
You know, that's what we want to acknowledge. This is new information. It's going to take some time. It's pushing up, as Brian says, you know, it's pushing up against stuff that makes it uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
So it's asking me to question what has been the operating mode.
Yep.
And what do you mean this is not a good thing that I've been using this informal influence all this time? What do you mean that it's not? Me rolling my eyeballs and making sarcastic comments that make people laugh, but also undermine, like Frank said, yeah, we're not doing that. You know, these are conversations that you haven't been in before because nobody has made it this clear.
Right.
So we're working on making something clear that probably hasn't existed in your work experience. The automobile industry works very informally. That's why I say it's like a village, and it has the power structures of villages. And so, but you know, for scalability and long-term success and profitability, we need to move out of being a village. So,
Can I say
make sense?
one more thing, Pamela?
No, you've used up all your airtime, Frank. You can say no. No, go ahead, Frank. You don't need my
No,
permission.
an easy way sometimes to like realize
For
this
me, for me,
for me
an
to
easy way.
realize this, yes, for me to realize this is happening on the floor is if you're teaching something
If
like
I'm teaching,
if I'm coaching something over and over again, and somebody comes up to me and with a completely different way of doing it that they've been doing it, and I have to say, who told you to do it like that? Generally, there's this going on. Well,
Yep.
Rodney said, or Anthony said, or they never do it that way. And I'm like, oh, so the message is being lost over the last 3 weeks of how we're coaching it because
Love it, Frank. That's a
that's
great example.
that's how I recognize
Landy,
it.
you have any examples that come to mind of that?
No, I wish I did. Just, because most people look at Doug and they're like, "Yeah, we're not Doug," and they just don't bother to bother him. You know, it's like
Len, what about when Corey was there?
that was the big thing. So Corey Jr.,
Mercado,
sometimes Gatto, but Corey and Jr., you know, with the informal power, those were the two that had their own followers as to how they were doing things. And you know, we had wished to one time harness Corey's ability, but that didn't work out for us.
It didn't,
So.
no. Yeah,
And
that's what
Junior,
you want to do is you want to get those,
yeah.
You want to get those informal leaders aligned with formal wherever you can, because that's where they are. And I know, Joe, you've worked to do that. So, you know, that's what we're talking about here. All right. Thank you for an active live discussion. Stay tuned. We've got more rich content. Stay tuned for next week. And you know what? This has been recorded and you can listen to it again.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pamela.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you.
thank you.